Okay, I just made more room on this old phone. I forgot to delete the last video and I was running out of room. So Maria Gimbutas, she was, the traditional, what you would call it, archaeologist destroyed her because she had the nerve to make conclusions or to make suggestions that that went against the orthodox archaeology. And people are afraid when you start to challenge people's narratives, the traditions, the traditional way of doing things in which people are invested. They have, they need their job, they have debt, they have kids to feed, they have, this and that and whatever, and to hold on to their position. They are going to go again. They are going to go after you to get rid of you. Because it challenges their own assumption. If that proves to be right, what you're saying, like Maria Gimbutas was saying, and it proves that their traditionalist views are wrong and hers are right, they are going to be out of a job. So they tried to get rid of her, and they did. Even to this day, you can see that in many archaeological books, where my hair is funny, where the mention is of old Europe and the figurines of the goddesses that were uncovered, her name is slowly being erased. So that's a real problem. So there's another one that is intuitively got her answers, and she was right. Of course. Excuse me. But you can't allow this to be a narrative, because it challenges all those people that already hold power, and they need the money and they have positions of power and money. It challenges their status, their class in society. Excuse me, the cold is still coming up. So that's Maria Gimbutas, yeah? Campbell was the same. He was labeled crazy in many ways because he taught things that were seen by the education system where he worked in the university for girls. I think it was a school for girls, university, where these things, what he taught, it was mythology, stories, mythology. That was his thing. And he used to complain that they used to give him the smallest room for his lectures. It just, symbolically saying, well, you're not important. What you're saying is not important. Yeah? Gimbutas, or Tesla, of course. There's another one. I mean, we use so many of these things. Tesla is called the man that invented the 20th century. Alternative current, the electric motor, wireless, radio, all of his inventions. There's many, many more. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of inventions. We're using all these every day. But he was labeled. He was destroyed. They took his inventions and used them to their own means without giving him anything in return. He died penniless. He lived in a hotel in New York, and it was out of the kindness of the hotel, because he couldn't pay his fees in there. They would feed him and allow him to stay in the room. The mainstream, the society took his inventions and inverted them to their own use. So he was labeled crazy as well because of he wanted to give electricity. That was his goal. That was his dream, to everyone for free, to the whole planet. He knew how to do it through wireless connections, different points on the planet, and you could have free electricity. That wasn't allowed because you couldn't make money. He's the industrialists that were supporting him, especially J.P. Morgan, wouldn't allow that because there was no money for him to be made out of that. So he was labeled crazy and so on, and destroyed personally, politically, financially. Yeah. So I'm going to read you a few things and bobs that people have shared with me. over the years, writing few things from your heart, writing things that come to you that seem important, and you just write them. Some people are brave enough to share them with me. These things are not privately sent to me. They are being posted on social media, so they are public, so it's no problem for me to share them with you. So I'll read to you a few bits and things that I found that have been shared. And the first one is by Shay Sommer. Now Shay, you know who you are. Sharon Sommer. So this is what she said. It's the seeds that sprout from our heart that grow the best. Exactly. You know, exactly. If you speak from your heart and you speak directly, yes, you're not going to be a famous writer, you're not going to be a famous artist, you're not going to be famous. That's it, because you're speaking directly. You speak, especially if you're speaking from the spirit, if you're speaking from the inner self, from the soul, about things that go against the narrative, against tradition, against religion, against power. And it does speak that way. Like you have seen some of like what I read you just now, the post I read you regarding the, people that are finding my work, the intellectualists, the extroverts, they find my work, it grinds against the ideologies, their narrative. It grinds against them, So, not so much now anymore, maybe because I've weeded them out, a lot of them. But before, when I started it, I had comments that were vicious, because how dare you say things the way you say them, especially from the religious nuts. Let's see if we can find another one by Shay Sommer. Oh yes, this is one of my favorites. Yeah. I'm so happy to see people post their opinions with the same vile hatred and division that they claim to be awoke from. I'll read that again. I'm so happy to see people post their opinions with the same vile hatred and division that they claim to be woke from. This happened at the time when I think when the war in I don't know whether Shay is referring to that, but when I found this quote, it was about the same time when the war in Ukraine between Russia and NATO started. And I remember being not so much shocked, but disappointed. I think people that were all love and light and we are all oneness, and there shouldn't be any discrimination or divisions between us, suddenly started to have not only Ukrainian flags on the profile, but saying things against terrible things against Russia without actually having any proof, or they were just simply repeating what they were told, usually from TV and media. And I said that, well, how can you say that this is what it means, this is what this quote here, the Shay's words mean to me. How can you keep dividing us in such a way when you first said that everything is love and light, everyone, that there's oneness? So you see, first there's what people want us to think of themselves, and then when the situation comes, when the real situation in the world comes, and we are pressed to hold to a narrative, that usually comes out. The real dividedness still inside these people in their own minds still comes out. Yeah. So that's Shay. Let me see. Oh yes. I've got one of my fragments from Donna May. You know who you are, Donna. So, the pen can tell the stories that often the tongue cannot, Donna May. And this was this year. The pen can tell the stories that often the tongue cannot. It's exactly right. You have the ability to speak things when you connect to the spirit, when you connect to the soul, when intuition takes over, you're going to say things, like I said to you, that are unfavorable, in the minds of the masses. You have to understand that everyone is programmed. I was programmed at the beginning as well. Until I unprogrammed myself, I started to look within and started to do this work seriously. So when you start to speak, the whole purpose of recovery of your inner self or spirit or soul is to live in both ways, balanced. That is to say, you live in this reality, the physical reality, in your everyday life, but you also connected to that spiritual reality, the invisible dimension of life. And when you begin to mediate between the two, the words are going to come that are completely, the things, the truth, the insights, the wisdom that's going to come is it's going to go against the approved narrative. So those that are brave enough to speak, and actually bring to us the messages from the other side, usually are branded with, I thought she was crazy, but she was only highly intuitive, with craziness. Not so long ago, let me tell you a story. Not so long ago, I was talking with someone regarding these dreams, and I was explaining how to connect to the spirit, to that invisible dimension, and I was sharing my own stories, how I receive a lot of information in my dreams. And without a thought, without any contemplation, the other person that I was talking about, it was one-on-one, when I was talking to, just turned around and said to me, perhaps you got schizophrenia. Because you receive this information, because you hear the voice, the inner voice. Yes, there are people that got schizophrenia. I've worked with people that got schizophrenia. But this, because we have nothing to compare to, that's where it lands. And that's why a lot of people are so, how can we call it? They're hesitant to share their personal work. And I understand that. And they're very, very hesitant to talk about dreams, especially the big dreams, what they received, because you're going to get labeled. You're going to get a lot of times destroyed. And if you still need society to survive, you need your work, you need to earn money, you need your position, you got kids to feed, you got loans to pay, you're going to stay silent. You're going to shut up. You're never going to share this, because it's just going to cause trouble for you. Yeah. So that was one example. And recently, within last year, I'll tell you another story regarding myself. Last year, in a conversation again, one-on-one, but this time with a friend that I've known since 90s. And she said to me that over the years I thought you were crazy. You see? Because the actions that I took, the decisions that I took in my life, the decisions I took, she knew me back then. To walk away from my work, well-paying work in Perth in the 90s, to travel to Scandinavia, to look for what I was looking for, the intuitive connection to the spirit, and then studies to remove myself from society completely, where I returned in 1999, 2000. And I returned to stay with my parents. There's nowhere else that I could stay without having to worry about work. And I needed the time to just simply do the inner work. And, I had to fight my way to be able to do that over there as well, because I was being kicked out to work. Yeah, you're old enough, get out, you have to work. No, I had to do my inner work, and I stayed until I moved out and continued my work later. So, having said all I've said to you today, like the title says, I thought she was crazy, but she was just highly intuitive. Don't be afraid to share your work. Yeah? Don't be afraid to be... People are going to label you regardless, because in our society, we only have one God, which is usually economy and the rational mind. So whatever comes from the irrational side of things, the intuitive mind, the missing part, which is the feminine, I call it I mean, we know that this is the feminine. Jung called the anima, the unconscious, the feminine. When it comes from the unconscious, from the soul, from the spirit, it's going to be labeled irrational. Unless it is given, unless you put it in words that is within the frame of allowed information or traditional or allowed narrative. And that's why, for instance, the church allowed the saints to speak but wouldn't allow the mystics. The saints stayed within the allowed narrative of the church, the mystics didn't, or the witches. And so you had the killings, the burning times, the witches and the mystics and so on. And I keep touching the screen because the app doesn't want to close. So you have that. So don't be afraid. Just if you don't need to share anything. Just start writing and see what happens, what comes through. There will be the more you write, the more archetypal information is going to come through. So you're going to have symbols. You're going to speak about gold, perhaps. You're going to speak about caves or trees or water or fountains. The more that happens, the more and then you're going to have to do some research what these symbols mean. I used to just go into Wikipedia and look at fountain, and I didn't bother. I didn't want to know about the, building of a fountain, the structure of a fountain. I was looking at the religious content, at the what do they call it, the interaction with humanity, for instance. So you're looking at the mythological. What does it mean in mythology? What does a tree mean in mythology? Or water, or gold, or silver? There will be colors, there will be letters, there will be words that have their own meaning. That is to say, at that point, you've made a connection to the unconscious. And the unconscious is now speaking to you in its own symbolic, mythological language, archetypes. And it's time to study and learn. So if you have a dream, for instance, a deep dream or vision or something that has come through and you don't understand, you can get in touch with me. You can get in touch with me and I can look at that and help you with understanding these symbols, if that's what you like to do. Alright, so that's what I wanted to talk to you about today. The video will be in 2 parts. I'll see if I can manage to bring them together. I don't have the software, but maybe I'll find something online. If not, it will just be in 2 parts, and one shorter one and one longer one. Okay? So thanks for listening, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.